Most people trying to manage their blood sugar are focused on the wrong question. They ask, what should I eat? They read about superfoods, they buy supplements, they add things to their diet. But there's a second question, equally important and almost universally ignored. What should you stop eating? Because here is the reality. You can eat the most carefully chosen, nutrient-dense foods in the world and completely undermine all of that effort with a handful of products that are quietly destroying your insulin sensitivity every single day. Today, I'm going to show you exactly what those products are, what they're doing inside your body, and what you can replace them with. I'm James Mercer, and welcome to the Longevity Tip. In this video, you'll learn the 8 categories of food that research consistently links to worsening blood sugar, insulin resistance, and diabetes progression. For each one, I'll explain the biological mechanism, not just what to avoid, but why your body reacts the way it does, and I'll give you practical alternatives for each one. Let's get into it. When it comes to managing blood sugar, most health advice focuses exclusively on what to add to your diet. Eat more fiber, eat more vegetables, eat more protein, and that advice isn't wrong, but it's incomplete. There are 2 equally important nutritional principles for anyone dealing with prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, or insulin resistance. The first, choose foods that actively support healthy blood sugar regulation. The second, stop eating foods that actively make the problem worse. Most people follow the first principle while completely ignoring the second. They add a handful of blueberries to their breakfast while washing it down with a sweetened coffee drink containing 40 grams of sugar. The net result is often worse than if they'd done nothing at all. The foods we're about to cover aren't just not ideal, they're actively harmful in the context of impaired glucose metabolism. They raise blood sugar rapidly, they worsen insulin resistance, they drive inflammation, and some of them do all 3 simultaneously. Understanding which foods belong in this category, and why, gives you a clear, actionable framework, not a restrictive diet, not a list of rules, just the knowledge of what's working against you, so you can make better decisions without confusion. If there is one single category of food that does more damage to blood sugar control than anything else, this is it. Sweetened beverages, sodas, fruit drinks, energy drinks, sweetened coffees, flavored teas, and sweetened cocoa deliver sugar into your bloodstream faster than almost any other food. Here's why they're particularly dangerous. When you eat solid food, even sugary solid food, your digestive system takes time to break it down. That delay slows the absorption of sugar into your blood, giving your insulin system more time to respond. Liquid sugar bypasses this delay almost entirely. It reaches your small intestine rapidly, is absorbed almost immediately, and causes a sharp, dramatic spike in blood glucose. The numbers are striking. A typical sweetened beverage contains around 10.5 grams of sugar per 100 milliliters. A standard glass, 250 milliliters, contains 26 grams of sugar. That's equivalent to dissolving 5 teaspoons of sugar into a single glass of water and drinking it in a few minutes. And very few people stop at 1 glass. A standard 500 milliliter bottle delivers over 50 grams of sugar, which is the entire recommended daily upper limit for sugar intake in 1 drink before any food. The research is unambiguous. Studies show that regular consumption of sweetened beverages increases the risk of developing type 2 diabetes by 26%. And for people who already have elevated blood sugar, these drinks directly worsen insulin resistance, meaning the cells that should be absorbing glucose become even less responsive to insulin with every serving. The replacement is simple: plain water, unsweetened sparkling water, unsweetened tea or coffee. These are the only beverages that don't impose a metabolic cost. Everything else with added sugar, regardless of how it's marketed, is delivering liquid sugar to your bloodstream. This category combines 2 of the most harmful ingredients for blood sugar into a single package and does it in a form that's nearly impossible to eat in moderation. Pastries, donuts, croissants, biscuits, cakes, cookies, and similar products are problematic for two distinct reasons that compound each other. The first is obvious: high sugar content. These products deliver rapid blood sugar spikes, just like sweetened beverages. The second is less well known and arguably more insidious: trans fats. Trans fats are artificially modified fatty acids created through industrial processing. They appear in many commercially baked goods and processed pastries, often listed as partially hydrogenated oils on ingredient labels. The research on trans fats and insulin resistance is clear and damning. These compounds directly reduce the sensitivity of your cells to insulin, meaning they make your cells less willing to absorb glucose from the blood. This is the exact metabolic dysfunction that defines insulin resistance. But the damage doesn't stop there. Trans fats also drive systemic inflammation. One study found that people with high trans fat intake had levels of C-reactive protein, a key inflammatory marker, that were 73% higher than those with low intake. Chronic inflammation further disrupts insulin signaling and accelerates the complications of diabetes. And there is a third layer: caloric density. These products are typically extremely calorie dense, promoting weight gain and visceral fat, which is itself one of the strongest drivers of insulin resistance. The cycle becomes self-reinforcing. When the craving for something sweet hits, the alternatives matter. Dark chocolate with 70% cocoa or higher contains far less sugar and no trans fats. A small handful of nuts satisfies the desire for something substantial without the blood sugar consequence. Greek yogurt with a few berries provides sweetness with protein and fiber that slow glucose absorption. Candy, gummy sweets, lollipops, ice cream, milk chocolate bars, these are concentrated sugar in its most direct form. There's no fiber, no protein, no fat to slow the absorption. The glucose hits your bloodstream almost as fast as drinking sweetened water. But there's a category here that catches people off guard: flavored yogurts. Many people eat flavored yogurt, believing it to be a healthy choice. It has protein, it's fermented, it feels nutritious. But a standard serving of flavored yogurt frequently contains 15 to 20 grams of added sugar, more than many candy bars. The fruit in the yogurt is almost always a sweetened fruit preparation, not real fruit. Plain Greek yogurt is a genuinely excellent blood sugar-friendly food, high in protein, which slows glucose absorption, and low in sugar when unsweetened. Add your own fresh berries and a small amount of nuts. You get the experience of sweetness with dramatically less impact on blood glucose. This next category surprises people the most because these foods don't taste particularly sweet, and yet they raise blood sugar as dramatically as many obvious sugary foods. White bread, white rice, white pasta, couscous, semolina, corn flour products, and rice cakes all share a critical characteristic. They have a high glycemic index. The glycemic index measures how rapidly a food raises blood glucose. Foods made from refined white flour and processed grains rank very high, not because they contain added sugar, but because the refining process has stripped away almost all of the dietary fiber. Fiber is the key. When fiber is present in a carbohydrate food, it slows the movement of that food through your digestive system, reduces the rate of glucose absorption, and flattens the blood sugar curve. When fiber is absent, as it is in white flour products, carbohydrates are digested and absorbed rapidly, causing sharp blood sugar spikes. This applies to home cooking as well. Wheat flour, corn flour, rice flour, and potato starch, even when used at home, produce the same glycemic effect. Pancakes, pasta, dumplings, and flatbreads made from these flours raise blood sugar just as rapidly. The replacements are the whole grain equivalents: whole grain rye bread, oats, quinoa, buckwheat, barley, and whole grain pasta all contain substantially more fiber, which moderates the blood sugar response. The rule of thumb: the closer a grain product is to its natural unprocessed form, the better it is for blood sugar control. The issue is not fruit itself. The issue is specific fruits that are high in sugar and low in fiber, eaten in ways that maximize blood sugar impact. Bananas, grapes, dates, pears, and watermelons sit at the higher end of the glycemic spectrum among fruits. This doesn't mean never eating them. It means being thoughtful about portion size and pairing. There are two forms of fruit that are far more problematic: dried fruit and processed fruit products. Dried fruit, raisins, dates, dried apricots, dried cranberries, is essentially concentrated sugar. A small handful of raisins contains roughly twice the sugar of the same volume of fresh grapes. Fruit juices, particularly clear juices without pulp, are liquid sugar with almost no fiber. A glass of apple juice contains nearly as much sugar as a glass of cola, with a comparable blood sugar impact. The same applies to jams, fruit purees, canned fruit and syrup, and candied fruit. There is also an important note on preparation. Blending fruit significantly worsens its glycemic impact. When fruit is blended, the physical structure that slows digestion is destroyed. Eating fruit whole, with the skin where possible, is meaningfully better for blood sugar than consuming the same fruit as a smoothie. One practical tip: if you're going to eat fruit, pair it with something containing fat, protein, or additional fiber. A handful of nuts, a spoonful of nut butter, a serving of Greek yogurt, or a tablespoon of ground flaxseed. All of these slow the absorption of the fruit's sugar and reduce the glycemic impact significantly. Lower sugar fruits, berries of all kinds, green apples, kiwi, citrus fruits, and cherries deliver genuine nutritional value with less impact on blood sugar. These are the fruits to prioritize. Most people know that deep-fried food is bad for you. Very few people understand exactly how it damages blood sugar regulation, or why the problem goes far beyond just the calories. Deep-fried foods cause problems through two distinct mechanisms. The first is the base ingredient. Potatoes, for example, have a high glycemic index on their own. When turned into fries or chips, that glycemic impact is preserved, while trans fats are added from the industrial frying process. A 2018 study found that people who regularly ate deep-fried French fries had a 36% higher risk of developing type 2 diabetes compared to those who rarely consume them. The second mechanism is more profound, and it applies not just to frying, but to any high-temperature, prolonged cooking method, including roasting and grilling. During these processes, sugar molecules bind to proteins in a reaction called glycation, producing compounds known as advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. AGEs are toxic molecules. When consumed regularly, they accumulate in the body and drive a cascade of harmful effects. In the context of diabetes and blood sugar, the research is particularly striking. AGEs play a central role in the development of the most serious diabetic complications: diabetic retinopathy, which damages vision; diabetic nephropathy, which impairs kidney function; diabetic neuropathy, which damages the nervous system; and diabetic cardiomyopathy, which affects heart function. People with existing diabetes or insulin resistance are particularly vulnerable to the effects of dietary AGEs because their baseline levels of these compounds are already elevated. This doesn't mean eliminating cooking. It means choosing cooking methods that minimize AGE formation. Steaming, boiling, poaching, and slow cooking at lower temperatures produce dramatically fewer AGEs than high-temperature frying, roasting, or grilling. When you do grill or roast, marinating in acidic ingredients like lemon juice or vinegar reduces AGE formation significantly. The food industry has become extraordinarily creative in its use of language, and nowhere is this more relevant for blood sugar management than in the many names used for sugar. The fundamental biological principle is simple: sugar is sugar, regardless of its source or its name. Brown sugar, raw sugar, cane sugar, coconut sugar, these are all sucrose. They raise blood sugar in exactly the same way as white table sugar. The trace minerals present in less refined versions are present in such tiny amounts as to be nutritionally irrelevant. The health claims made for these products are marketing, not science. The same applies to syrups: maple syrup, agave syrup, rice syrup, Date syrup, these are liquid sugar. The fact that they come from natural sources doesn't change their metabolic impact. Agave syrup, often marketed as a low glycemic alternative, is exceptionally high in fructose, which drives liver insulin resistance with regular consumption. Glucose fructose syrup, known as high fructose corn syrup, appears in an enormous range of processed foods and is strongly linked to metabolic dysfunction. And there is one more category worth highlighting: concentrated fruit juice used as a sweetener. Many products marketed as no added sugar use concentrated apple juice, grape juice, or pear juice as a sweetening agent. These are biologically equivalent to sugar syrup. When reading ingredient labels, train yourself to identify sugar under its many names. The most common: sucrose, glucose, fructose, maltose, dextrose, any syrup of any kind, fruit juice concentrate, and any ingredient ending in the letters OSE. If any of these appear in the first 3 ingredients of a product, the sugar content is significant. For people managing blood sugar, alcohol presents a unique and often underestimated risk, and the mechanism is not what most people expect. The obvious concern with alcohol is the sugar content of many alcoholic drinks. Beer, sweet wine, cocktails, and liqueurs all contain significant carbohydrates that raise blood sugar directly. But for people taking blood sugar lowering medications, particularly a class of drugs called sulfonylureas, alcohol poses an additional, more serious risk. Here is the mechanism. Your liver serves as a glucose reservoir. When blood sugar drops too low, whether from medication, intense exercise, or skipping a meal, the liver releases stored glucose into the bloodstream to restore balance. This is a critical safety mechanism. Alcohol directly inhibits this process. It suppresses the liver's ability to release glucose. So if you're taking medication that lowers blood sugar and you drink alcohol, you've disabled your body's primary safety mechanism for preventing dangerously low blood sugar, a condition called hypoglycemia. The symptoms of hypoglycemia range from headaches, tingling in the hands, anxiety, and intense hunger in mild cases, to confusion, impaired vision, slurred speech, seizures, loss of consciousness, and coma in severe cases. Even for people not on medication, alcohol consumption impairs insulin sensitivity and disrupts the hormonal signals that regulate blood sugar over the hours following drinking. If you choose to drink alcohol, 2 rules significantly reduce the risk. First, never drink on an empty stomach. Food slows alcohol absorption and provides glucose that counteracts the liver suppression effect. Second, choose drinks with lower sugar content. Dry wine and spirits without sugary mixers are preferable to beer, sweet wine, or cocktails. 8 categories. 8 distinct mechanisms by which the wrong food choices actively undermine blood sugar control: sweetened beverages, pastries and baked goods with trans fats, sweets and hidden sugar in flavored yogurts, white flour and refined grains, high sugar fruits and fruit products, deep fried foods and the AGEs they produce, sugar disguised under dozens of different names, and alcohol, which disables your liver's ability to regulate blood sugar. None of this requires perfection. The research doesn't support total elimination for most people. It supports meaningful reduction. The goal is not to never enjoy a piece of chocolate or a glass of wine. The goal is to understand what these foods are doing inside your body so you can make deliberate, informed choices rather than uninformed ones. If you found this useful, leave a like and subscribe to The Longevity Tip. It helps more people find this kind of content. I'm James Mercer. I'll see you in the next one.